Hello students, Mr. Bastias here. Welcome to Unit 2, Week 4, Day 16. Make sure you have your meaning mapper, article a day, and your book of knowledge, as well as some paper and pencil to write with. Today we will learn about inventions that change the world and share our opinions on their benefits. Let's get started. Our focus word this week is invent. How many syllables do you hear in the word invent? That's right. 2 syllables. Invent. Now I want you to say all the sounds you hear in the word. Repeat them after me. A, N, V, E, N, T. Here's the meaning of the word invent. When you invent something, you get an idea, and from this new idea, you make something that has never been made by anyone before. Can you think of a word that we could add to our meaning mapper that relates to the word invent? I added the word imagination. Imagination is when you think of a lot of different things and you have lots of thoughts. And when you invent something, you create something new. So that's why I added the word imagination to my meaning mapper. Let's get started with our article a day. Inventions that changed our world. Look at the picture. What inventions do you see? I see an airplane, telephone, car, and computer. Let's read our article a day. What would we do without bubblegum, invented in 1906 by Frank Henry Fleer? Here's bubblegum. Invented. When you invent something, you make something that has never been made before. Silly putty, invented in 1943 by James Wright. Here's silly putty. Basketball, invented in 1891 by James Naismith. Velcro, invented in 1948 by George de Mestral. People have been inventing things for years. Paper was invented about 2,000 years ago. The wheel was invented more than 5,000 years ago. What would life be like without paper to write on or bikes to ride? Those inventions have made life easier. Airplane. The Wright brothers invented the first airplane in December 1903. That makes 2003 the 100th anniversary. Now it's 2021, so it's like 120 years since they invented the airplane. Before the airplane was invented, most people traveled by cars, boats, and trains. Today, airplanes help people travel faster. How do airplanes help you? Airplanes help me see my mom because she lives all the way in Florida, and so in order for me to go see her, I have to travel by plane. Otherwise, it would take me like 20 hours to get there. When you travel, you go from one place to another. In Spanish, the word is viajar. Telephone. Alexander Graham Bell invented the telephone in 1876. Before the telephone was invented, people kept in touch by writing letters or talking in person. Today, the telephone makes it easier for people to talk to one another. How do telephones help you? Well, telephones help me communicate with people who are far away, such as my friends and my family. Look at this old picture of a telephone. How interesting. It looks nothing like the telephone that I have today. Automobile. The first four-wheeled gas-powered car was invented by Carl Benz in 1891. Before people had cars, they couldn't travel easily. They walked or rode horses for short trips. They took trains or boats for long trips. Today, cars are one of the main ways people travel. How do cars help you? I don't travel by car here, but sometimes I take an Uber to different places. Computer. People worked for years to make the first computer. It was built in 1946. The first computer was called ENIAC. Today, computers are an important part of many people's lives. People use computers as tools to write, get information, and much more. When you want information about something, you want to know things about it. That's what information means. How do computers help you? Well, computers are helping us learn right now. If it wasn't for this computer, I wouldn't be able to talk to all of you. Okay. Now I want you to take out your book of knowledge and write down 2 or 3 things you learned from the article that you would like to remember. Remember to use the sentence starters. I learned that. I also learned that. This makes me think of. As always, I'm going to go back to the article to find some evidence of the things I learned. The first thing I learned was that airplanes were invented in 1903. I'm going to make sure I write that down. So let me write that in my book of knowledge. I learned that airplanes were invented in 1903. Let me go back to the article to see what else I learned. I also learned that Alexander Graham Bell invented the telephone in 1876. So I'm going to write that down as well. I also learned that Alexander Graham Bell invented the telephone in 1876. This makes me think of all the things that I can do easier with all these inventions. If it wasn't for an invention like the telephone, I wouldn't be able to communicate with my friends. I wouldn't be able to communicate with my family. If it wasn't things like airplanes, I wouldn't be able to see them. So all these inventions definitely make my life a lot easier. The last thing I want you to do is to take out your meaning mapper. And we're going back to our focus word, invent. When you invent something, you get an idea, and from this new idea, you make something that has never been made by anyone before. We already added the word imagination to our meaning mapper because you use your imagination to invent new things. What other word could you add to our meaning mapper? I added the word genius. Genius is someone with an amazing mental or creative ability. They just have a huge brain. They are very, very smart. So someone who is a genius can invent new things. So that's why I added the word genius to my meaning. The last thing I want you to do is to add it to your word wall. So I added the word genius and I added the word imagination to my word wall. That's it for me. Have a wonderful day, everybody.